Good day, sir, and to my fellow Dibabawon IPs. The focus of this video is all about the ancestral domain to the Dibabawon IPs tribe. The Lumads are considered as the largest indigenous group in our municipality of Capalon, Davao del Norte. In my speech focal series by the Initiative IPs, we unearthed the history of our beautiful community and discovered the truths long forgotten by the common folk. The Dibabawon indigenous peoples are distinct social and cultural groups that share collective ancestral ties to the lands and natural resources where we live, occupy, or from which we have been displaced. The land and natural resources on which we depend are inextricably linked to our identities, cultures, livelihoods, as well as our physical and spiritual well-being. We often subscribe to our customary leaders and organizations for representation that are distinct or separate from those of the mainstream society or culture. Many Dibabawonons, indigenous peoples, still maintain a language distinct from the official language or languages of their country or region in which we reside. Indigenous peoples like the Dibabawon tribe often lack formal recognition over our lands, territories, and natural resources, are often last to receive public investments in basic services and infrastructure, and face multiple barriers to participate fully in the formal economy, enjoy access to justice, and participate in political processes and decision-making. This legacy of inequality and exclusion has made indigenous communities are more vulnerable to impacts of climate change and natural hazards, including to disease outbreaks such as COVID-19. Vulnerabilities to the pandemic are exacerbated with the lack of access to national health, water and sanitation systems, the shutting down of markets, and mobility restrictions that have greatly impacted our livelihoods, food insecurity, and well-being. While we, the Dibabawon's indigenous peoples, own, occupy, or use a quarter of city's surface area, we safeguard 80% of locals' remaining biodiversity. We hold vital ancestral knowledge and expertise on how to adapt, mitigate, and reduce climate and disaster risk. In the context of COVID-19 pandemic, there is an opportunity to work through the traditional authorities and healers of the indigenous peoples Dibabawons to provide accurate information on how disease prevention, distribute protective gear and hygiene supplies, and support traditional medicine, livelihoods, and recovery in ways that are appropriate to indigenous peoples' priorities and cultures. Much of the land occupied by the indigenous peoples in the hinterlands of the Gayan community is under customary ownership, and yet many governments recognize only a fraction of this land as formally or legally belonging to the Dibabawon indigenous people. Even indigenous territories and land are recognized, protection of boundaries are external parties' use of natural resources are often weak. Insecure land tenure is a driver of conflict, environmental degradation, and weak economic and social development. This threatens cultural survival and vital knowledge systems, both of which contribute to ecological integrity, biodiversity, and environmental health upon which we all depend. Improving security of land tenure, strengthening governance, promoting public investments in quality and culturally appropriate service provision, and supporting the Dibabawon's indigenous systems for resilience and livelihoods are critical to reducing the multidimensional aspects of poverty while distributing to the sustainable development goals. The local governments and the provincial of Davao del Norte reunite works with indigenous peoples and governments to ensure that broader development programs reflect the voices and aspiration of all Dibabawon's indigenous peoples in the Barangay Upitan, Capalon, Davao del Norte. Additionally, these inventories have helped indigenous peoples to recognize and designate natural resources over which we have stewardship, resulting in increased control, surveillance, and enforcement. And the Dibabawon who are trying to voice out the rights and the freedom from our ancestral domains into the world in order to recognize our own passion, to attain our vision and mission to participate in the community, and to resolve the adversities we're facing in our community.